Hi, friends. Welcome to the Beyond the Title podcast, the podcast seeking to build a community definition of the word leadership. Today's guest is an author, poet, gamer, game designer, narrative designer, games critic, and younger sister of your dear host, Shantae Daniels. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Okay, we're living in fascinating times right now,
Yeah,
which is part of the reason for me doing this. So,
that's fair. I do feel like in times of uh, darkness like this, that that drop of hope. I've been feeling that as well. Of like, might as well just do my dreams as I can while I can, because who knows what's going to happen in the next day or month or year.
no, to your point, there are some glimmers of hope. There are a lot of people who are stepping up and trying to build community and a a non-judgmental community. I've seen a lot of push, where you you don't have to do it perfectly. Do it the wrong way, but as long as you're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love that. I love a lot of folks are not trying to hold each other to some impossible standard that just like bogs everything down, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like now is not the time to be perfect. And you could probably argue that it's never the right time to be perfect. I think it's always the right time to just do your best, and do what you can. And now more so than ever, just do what you can and do it the best way you can. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine.
I agree. I agree. Well said. Now is not the time to be perfect. We're going to keep that to heart here on this podcast as we do it as imperfectly as possible. Um, so, yes, this is a podcast focusing on leadership. And you said to me that you are not a leader.
Yeah. I was looking at the questions, the prep questions, and I said, I hope it's okay. I'm not a leader because I just looking at the questions about leadership, and I personally have never found or never believed myself to be someone in a position of leadership. I feel like I have never, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a better word for lead, but I've just never had followers, I guess. I've never had people to be like, go this way or do that. Or I've never really felt that.
Even when you were a college professor?
Oh, yeah. Even when I was a college professor, actually, yeah. I I mean, I'm sure some of it is just me being hard on myself, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I didn't enjoy being a professor that I just don't look at it that way. Yeah, just thinking about it, it's like, yeah, I don't think I led them. I think I taught them. I think I'm being pedantic, but I think I taught them and I tried to educate them. I tried to help them, but I don't think I led them.
So then what would define leading? How would you define leading then?
Um, in a work environment, I think of like a boss, a manager. Those are positions I've never held. Um, when I think of leadership, I guess in a non-work setting, it's kind of just that person that you go to, um, either for advice or just some sort of guidance of for help, an advisor in an academic role, not necessarily a professor leads, I guess, which is weird because a professor does lead. But when I think of like leadership, a leader, I think of more of like the advisor, the person that's there to guide you and help you in your academic journey. And maybe teachers do lead, but they only lead, for that period of time that you're in that class. And I feel like I'm being harsh on teachers, probably because I just didn't enjoy teaching.
No, please.
But but yeah, no, that's when I think of leadership, I those are the things I think of. Guidance, advice, help, pointing you into a direction. And yeah, I think those are kind of the big things.
Okay. That's fascinating. So not telling you what to do, not putting you on a narrow path and pushing you down that way, but there's an emotional side to it, helping
Yeah.
you see what you need, not necessarily what they want for you.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that way because that's how I want to be led. I don't want people to tell me what to do, but I'm fine with advice. I'm fine with someone saying, "Oh, it sounds like you like this, or it sounds like you're gravitating towards this. Have you tried X?" I'm fine with that versus someone just telling me to try X. I don't like that. So, yeah, for me, a good leader is someone that does it that way instead of that kind of prescriptive, you should do this, you should do that type of uh, conversation.
Hmm. Have you had good leaders in your life who led you the way you were looking for?
Yeah, I think my college advisor was the first leader that I could think of where I just felt like she and I really meshed. And that was through 4 years. She was my academic advisor from freshman year to college, and so she really got to understand me, my writing, me, on a personal level because I was writing poetry, so I was writing from personal life as well. So she understood that as well, and it felt like a friendship a little, but more so, she was this guidance for me for how to make my poems better, how to really get at emotion, how to publish, where to publish, those types of things. She was the first, and I think of her often. And we still are in contact, but just clearly not in the same way that we were when I was in college, and I had to see her once a week. So, but yeah, and I think I've had some bosses that tried to be to be a leader in the way that I want them to be a leader, but they were very nice. It's not like we clashed or any way, but it was just like didn't mesh as well as my academic advisor. Um, yeah,
So yeah, someone who helps you be the best you,
yeah,
the best your version of you.
yeah. And I think that's why I didn't feel like a leader when I taught because I mean, I was just teaching English 101. So I was giving them guidance. I was helping them. But at the end of the day, I felt like I didn't know them that well. And also, a lot of them didn't want to be there. And so it didn't feel like a place where they wanted my guidance. And if someone doesn't want my guidance, I'm not going to give it to them. I don't want to force them. So, yeah, so I think it just kind of, it didn't feel like a place where I was meant to lead. I was just meant to teach. And so I tried to teach as best as I could, but I didn't, I wasn't there to really give like advice.
Okay. So something that's more of your passion, gaming. I'd listened to you on forgive me, I can't remember the name of the podcast now. Uh,
Motherboard?
Thank you. Radio Motherboard?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by Vice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I could hear the passion in your voice when you were talking about the lack of black voices in gaming. Do you think by being a part of raising up that serious issue that you maybe not a leader by the way you define it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by bringing light to this and getting more attention on this, do you think there's any embers of leadership there?
That's a great question. I had never thought of it that way, but I think you're right. That maybe I helped lead the conversation. I don't think I was the first person to bring it up, but I do think that the article I wrote plus that podcast did spark more conversation about it. And yeah, I do think that makes sense if I seeing leadership in that way. It's like, yeah, I guess I did lead a little.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't I don't know what leadership is. I don't. It's a lot of things to a lot of different people, um, and it can be used to hurt a lot of folks too. So I struggle with the word, hence this
Hmm.
podcast. But I think there's something to be said. Trying to think of the way to word it here. You don't have to be in front of people or a thing to lead, right? Like you
Hmm.
like you said, you led more people to that topic. Um, has there been like have you heard from? I know this was 2016, but do you remember like hearing anyone like reach out to you or the your co-host about it after everything came out?
There was a lot more chatter, yeah, I would say so. Especially because at that time we were talking about a specific game, Uncharted 4, which that series is very big and very popular. And so that popular game plus this, I guess, controversial topic equaled a lot of talk. And to the point where I'll back up for a second. So one of the reasons why that conversation even came up is because in Uncharted 4, they introduce a new character, a black character, who's voiced by a white woman, Laura Bailey. And so there started to become some conversation about like, okay, this is like the first, I believe, the first black character in Uncharted. This is a great opportunity to introduce a new voice actress. And instead they chose Laura Bailey. No disrespect to Laura Bailey, she's very popular. I'm not surprised why they picked her, but she didn't come from the same background, and there was a lot of opportunity to hire someone from a same or similar background. And so after that podcast, after that article, I do remember Laura Bailey making a statement. I don't remember the specifics of that statement, but I do remember she kind of acknowledged what was going on. And so it got to the point where even she was seeing it, which I thought was crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, this has truly exited my little gamer bubble and has now branched into the people I'm talking about. Like she saw it. And that was a little scary, but I mean, nothing came of it. I didn't. I'm very fortunate, especially around that time, because that was Gamergate era. So there was a lot of hostility towards female gamers, and just it felt very violent and very chaotic. And so I feel very fortunate that I didn't get a lot of vitriol. But but yeah, I did see the effects of what I said and what I did. I saw the effects of it in a way that I don't know, maybe now we're hiring more black voice actors because of the conversation. I would love that.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, I could see I could see one or two more folks getting hired because there's more, it's more visible, it's a more visible problem. Um, you said that was the height of Gamergate. That's brave. I don't remember too much about Gamergate because you know, gaming isn't 100% my world.
Hmm.
And no disrespect to anyone who's in gaming. It's an art form and it is real. But I wasn't as up to date on everything, but I do know that it was a potentially dangerous time for anyone who was not a white male.
Yeah.
So it's pretty brave that you were raising that flag at that time.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm trying to think where that bravery came from, but it was just like I didn't care. I was just like whatever. Especially because at that time, there were very prominent figures that were being attacked. And I was not one of them. So in a way, I kind of felt under the radar, and I kind of felt like, you know, I'll be fine. Um, and I also knew I wanted to get this out. I wanted to get that conversation out because it was something I love Uncharted very much so. I mean, I'm pretty sure I said it in the podcast, but I uh, fell in love with Uncharted before I had even played it. I had watched videos of it on YouTube and thought, this is the greatest game ever. And then eventually, when I got a console where I could play it, I played it. But those conversations, even though I was frustrated about who they hired, they really just came from love of like, I love this game. And I want to see it do better. And I think that's where I come from with games in general. I love games. I hate Gamergate. I hate that camp harassment, happened. I hate the fact that gaming now is going through so many layoffs. And I hate how much it feels like companies are just trying to take, money and not really care about who they hire or what happens to them. I hate all of that. But at the end of the day, I love games. And so I try to keep fighting for it even when it feels like I shouldn't or it's okay to stop. I just want to keep going because I just love games in general.
Do you think that folks are the most critical of the people, places, things they are most passionate about?
Um, I think so. At least for me, I speak up because I love something so much, and it's kind of like, what the heck? Why is this happening? What is going on here? And so I do think a lot of people their criticism comes from loving something. I'm sure. Well, if I think of critics, I'm sure there's some critics that just do it because they hate a thing too. But no, I think it really boils down to passion, and wanting to see something better, and wanting to see change, and wanting to see progress. And so, I do think that's a way people go about it. At least that's how I do it.
Cool. And you don't see yourself as a leader in the gamer space, as a black woman, writer, gamer, critic.
Um, it's so hard for me to accept the title as leader. Um, because at the end of the day, I really just feel like I'm just a person. Like, I'm just trying to make stuff. Like, in the simplest form, it's like I'm not really trying to change the world, change gaming, although I am for the better. But I think it's a mix of like my humble brain won't let me admit the things that I've done or have accomplished, because people have come to me before and said, "Wow, you've done so much. You've written articles, you've made games, you've done this, you've done that." And I recognize it and I acknowledge it, but at the end of the day, it's just like, yeah, I'm just doing it. I'm just doing this. Um, and so it's really hard for me to be like, yeah, I'm a leader, especially because I don't feel like, I think a leader is known, like not necessarily celebrity status known, but they are known. They are well known. And I don't know how known I am in the gaming space. And so I've always kind of just felt a little under the radar, just kind of like chilling. Maybe if I had a larger following on X/Twitter, maybe I'd feel a little differently. But yeah, I've just always felt like I was chilling, just in the gaming space, popping in and out.
Okay. No, that's more than fair. And I am not trying to back you into calling yourself a leader.
Hmm.
Um, Let me ask you this then. Would you call yourself an expert?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I think I would. I think I would. Um, I do feel like I have an expertise in games. Maybe not necessarily like how to make them. Like I'm not the expert coder. Um, but I do feel like I understand how games work. I feel like I understand the design of games. Um, I really try to play a lot of different games. I try to understand them and understand why people play it, how people play it. I do want to know the ins and outs of video games, and so yeah, I would take expert as a title. I like that.
I only ask because you don't just play, but you've been so entrenched in the whole ecosystem of it for so long. That podcast was 2016. And from personal experience, I know you've been playing way before that. So I'm happy that you're willing to accept the title expert. I think that is very accurate for what you've got going on. Let's keep with the word expert. How important do you think representation is in expertise?
How? What do you mean?
That's
Sorry.
fair. No, no, no. Don't apologize. Or please don't apologize. So there are plenty of I think there are experts in gaming, right?
Hmm.
That don't have your lens, that don't look like you, that don't advocate for more diverse voices in gaming because it hasn't affected them, right? Going back to Motherboard Radio, one of your co-hosts said something very fascinating. He wanted to go into a store and see characters that were closer to him in appearance. And I thought that was really cool. As growing up, we didn't really have that. That's a pretty new concept.
Hmm.
Um, so, in terms of gaming expertise, of people writing about games, talking about games, not just like user experience and coding, but the art form of games, do you think it's important to have folks with different lenses speaking about games?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's honestly so strange how hard it is, or how hard it used to be at least, to find those diverse voices because so many people play games. So many people. It's a huge industry. And so it feels imperative. It feels so important to have experts from all different walks of life to address games and question them and interrogate them and talk about why they love them. And, like, it's, I think having all those diverse voices just only makes games better. It's, it's important when making games to have a diverse voice, to have different people in the room. And I think the same way, even just thinking about games, it's important to have a diverse voice. Um, it really does nothing but make the gaming space better.
Mm. What do you think holds folks back? Because you make a really good point. You could go on YouTube and throw a proverbial pebble and hit so many folks playing so many different types of games. And there are channels with niches like they only play indie horror or folks who only play Zelda games. Like that's it.
Hmm.
Um, what do you think holds? Because I forgive me, I'll back up. It seems like there are more players than writers.
Mm, yeah. I think part of that is it's weird to say that gaming is still young, but it is compared to other art forms. I mean, if gaming started in the 70s, oh, I was going to say that was 30 years ago, but now that's more like, what, 50 years ago? 40? Um, I don't know math, but in the grand scheme of things, gaming is still young. And I think it's coming out of this, obviously, because there was definitely an era where there were critics galore and people were talking about it, and that's also kind of when Gamergate came out. Like it exists, but I think first and foremost, people think of games, as toys, as like a thing you do when you're bored, as a thing you do in the bathroom. Like I think it took a while for people to take games seriously as like, no, this is an art form, and like, yeah, there's plenty of silly uh, I don't want to call them nonsense games, but silly games where you don't have to think that much. But then there's also like the, critically acclaimed super heavy, thinky type games too. Like it runs the gamut, like anything, like books, like movies, like music. Games are art. So I think it was just a while for people to realize games were art and that people could talk about it and be critic about it. I think the other thing is that writing about games is one, not very lucrative. I tried very hard to get an actual game writing job as a critic. I tried to work at publications, and unfortunately, they just had very few spaces. Um, and it was very hard to, I'd apply. It was very hard to get a job. So a lot of critics are freelance writers. And that's hard to do too. Being a freelance writer is tough. And making that like your full time job and having that income, having to pitch to so many places, assuming, most of them will get rejected and some will get accepted. The life of a game critic is just tough. So I think those are twofold. I think, and then and Gamergate it's been a while since Gamergate, so I'm not really sure how much it affects it now. Obviously, there's lasting effects of it, so I don't want to say like we're done with Gamergate. But I'm sure that also had its effect, and we may still be feeling it like 10 years later. And again with the layoffs, which isn't even about game writing, that's just game developers are getting laid off. It's like sometimes gaming can feel so against itself. It can feel like it's just like hurting itself. And I know of a lot of people too that just got burned out of writing about games, making games. Like it's just a tough space, which is so weird because games are so fun. And they're, at the end of the day, they're meant to be fun and enjoyable, but the space itself is not fun at all sometimes.
That's ironic. Games are not fun on the
Yeah,
back end.
unfortunately. I mean, that's not always the case, but it's definitely been a stressful couple of years.
I could see that. Do you think because the public opinion of games, like because it's become more mainstream, Peter and I have absolutely watched like people play games on YouTube. It's a movie. It's basically a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because games take, or some can take hundreds of hours to complete, movie nights planned for a week. We're
Mm-hmm.
just making it through the chapters. It's wonderful. We don't have to think about it. Yep, put that one on. And I don't think I'm alone in that. With games becoming more popular and the supply and demand and being commodified and not just seen as an art form, but a lucrative art form.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, gaming companies trying to stay alive have had to sacrifice some of the art and the joy of creation in order for survival?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I saw that firsthand when I worked at Blizzard. Um, I, yeah, I can talk about this. I think I can talk about this. So, I feel like I should confirm just in case. I'll say it and then I'll email you to be like, yeah, I can talk about this. I think I can though. But yeah, so Blizzard was working on a new IP. It was going to be something completely different. Blizzard has very solid titles already. They have Overwatch, people love it. They have Diablo, people love it. They, so on and so forth. And so they were making something entirely new. And when I was hired, they hired a lot of new people, a lot of new voices. I was very excited. I was not the only woman there. I was not the only black woman there. I was not the only black person there. Like we were such a different group. And it seemed like Blizzard was actively trying to listen to new voices and start something fresh, especially because at that time, Blizzard had a lot of press on them because of their CEO and just in general examples or stories of harassment and Blizzard being a quote unquote like boys club. There was just a lot of talk about working at Blizzard was not good for people who were, women or just not a white man. And so one of the reasons why I joined Blizzard, knowing that there was a lot of that happening or talks of that, was because they told me that they were actively working against that, that they were getting rid of the bad apples, that they were trying to be better, that they're trying to do better. And I was like, great, if you're trying to do better, I want to help you do better. So I joined Blizzard with, that hope of being better and this new title and things like that. And I'm happy to say I never faced any harassment. I truly think the group that I was working with was a genuinely good, supportive group. That was never a problem. The problem is we all got laid off. The problem is that title got scrapped. That new IP, that those new voices just got ditched. And it was hard. It was heartbreaking. There were so many people that were incredibly invested in this new title. There were people I worked with that loved Blizzard. They were so happy to work there. They were so happy to help Blizzard. They were so happy to have their name tied to Blizzard. It was like their dream company to work at or work for. And yeah, it was just I personally don't know why we got laid off. We weren't given any actual reason of oh, the money's not right or you guys aren't doing well. We never got any sort of, or I never got any sort of explanation. It was just today you are laid off. Very sudden. So yeah, and I think that's been happening in the gaming space, especially in the AAA space, where there's talks of trying new things, there's talks of experimentation, but at the end of the day, they're going to stick to what brings them money, and that's going to be the status quo. That's going to be the games that they've already made a bunch of times, and they know if they make it again, they'll make money. And I think that's why the AAA space is struggling right now, but the indie space is flourishing. The indie space, and I've always said this, I think a lot of people have already thought this, but the indie space is where the experiments are. It's where the new voices are. It's where the innovation is. And it's just been solidified because of how hard AAA is kind of fumbling right now, where people are going, oh yeah, you want indie games. To the point where indie games are being nominated for Game of the Year, and it's them versus these huge, big budget, big titled games, and then you have something made by one person. The indie space is really like what we talked about in the beginning of despair, and there's always that drop of hope. The indie space is that drop of hope for me. That is where all the love is, in my opinion.
Okay. So we got a David and Goliath, and right now Davids are up.
Yes. Like the stock market.
Davids are up. Your
Invest.
name is David.
Yeah. Buy.
Buy the Davids.
Invest in David.
Invest in David. I think we just coined the title today. Invest in David. So that is good to hear, because I think in hearing how you're talking about AAA v Indie, right? Or AAA and Indie. I don't want to necessarily pit anyone against anyone else. I'm thinking about film. I'm thinking about Marvel and how it had such a huge run, and it burned people out. It became repetitive. Beautiful stories, but became repetitive. And now it seems to be a rise for your A24s, your smaller weirdo films,
Mm-hmm.
Nic Cage is back.
Yeah.
Nic
Yes.
Cage and Davids are up.
Yeah. I've been watching Nic Cage movies lately. I've been wanting to watch The Pig. I haven't watched The Pig yet, but yes, Nicolas Cage is up.
Yes. I saw the one, just to derail the conversation for a moment, I saw the movie where he's in everybody's dreams.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet. I want to watch that one too.
I will not spoil it. Highly, highly, highly recommend. I think about that film often.
Have you seen the one where he plays Nic Cage? I forget what that one's called.
The unbearable weight of
Yeah, of something talent.
some. Yeah, he and Pedro Pascal. No, I
Mhm.
have not seen that. I will have to see if it's on any of the streaming devices.
Yeah, I recommend that one. That one was good too. But yeah, Nick Cage is up. He's back from all that debt. Did you hear that he owned two castles, some shrunken pygmy heads, an alligator? He was in big debt.
I mean, in all honesty, maybe it's age, but if I were given too much money, I'd probably go crazy too. I'd probably, yeah, you would have to call someone because at that point money doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
It's theoretical. So I could just if I can just have what I want and then I get what I want, I'm just gonna start getting other stuff. Like
great.
who cares?
Yep, exactly. It's all fake anyway.
It's
That's how
all
much.
fake. What do you mean I owe it? It's not real.
Right, exactly.
Oh no.
He said, I went, oh, how much? Yeah. Bring those scripts over. Let me see what you got. I read an article, I hate to derail more, but I read an article where he basically wasn't saying no to any script because he couldn't afford to say no. Like he had to. That's why he was in a few not so great films because
I
he
didn't
had to
have to
pay
read
off.
an article to know that. It was very clear. It was real clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure Nick Cage's agent. Oh my gosh.
He tried to sue his financial advisor, and the financial advisor countersued.
This
It's
is
like
not a Nick Cage gossip podcast.
I was just so fascinated. I was like, dang.
Okay. So you went down a Nick Cage rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah, because I had heard about the debt, but I was like, I just gotta see this for myself. What are these movies?
That would be a fascinating like movie night. Just the movies that got Nick Cage out of debt.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
stream all of those.
You're right.
I'm pretty sure there are quite a few celebrities where you could have those types of movie nights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. There is no segue for that. Um, okay. So, huh. I'm looking at my list of questions. Um, and I I haven't decided on a length, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think an hour is it. I think that's too long, especially for something so new. And for me being so new, me like speaking to someone for an hour and a half feels daunting. And
Mm.
I say an hour and a half because of editing.
Hmm.
Um, I was thinking 30 to 45 minutes, especially given the subject matter. This isn't that bombastic, right? It's not gossip. It's not um, political. It's not hot button issues, but I still think it's something that's important that needs to be discussed, especially for people from underrepresented communities, because this is my. I know I said in the beginning that this is a community definition of leadership, and it is, but it is also a plea against apathy.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not a great time to be an American right now.
Hmm.
Um, and I found myself sinking into apathy and trying to dopamine myself out of this,
Hmm.
scrolling a lot more, um, trying to just find anything to get away from reality.
Hmm.
And I don't think that's going to solve anything. I don't think overdosing on every sensational part of reality is going to help.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm on my Mr. Rogers and I'm looking for the helpers
Yeah,
in any space.
that makes sense. Yeah, the people who are passionate, who are, you know, still trying to do stuff in the midst of all this.
Exactly. And there's no one arena to lead, to help. Um, I think it's deeply important that we have folks in the gaming space who are fighting for diverse voices because observation alters reality. But if I see um, games that speak to maybe a little more my experience or have characters that have a little more my point of view or are made by people who maybe are closer to my part of the world than anything else,
Mm-hmm.
it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel as not part of something, you
Yeah.
know? I don't need to be a part of everything, but I don't think I should be excluded from any art form, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I'm seeking for helpers. And maybe leaders aren't isn't the right word, but I think because we all have this ingrained definition of leader, the headshot on LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
and the perfectly curated etc. But that's othering, right?
Mm-hmm. I really like seeking helpers because I think when I think of lead, in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to lead. That's a lot of responsibility. But I do want to help. Like, when I think of leadership, I think it intimidates me because I think of like, I'm the only one, I'm at the top. And I don't really want to be at the top. Or at least not by myself. I'd rather there be like 5 leaders and I'm one of them rather than the only leader. I think of leading as like a solitary thing, which I don't think is right. I mean, I think sometimes you do just have one sole leader, but I think leadership can be like a community of leaders, I guess, I think. But in any case, I do like the idea of helper. And I think that's why I like expert too, because I'm not leading, but I am helping you learn something or I'm helping teach something, but I'm not like the person. I think that's why leader scares me. And even now, even though I want dream goal to have my own gaming studio, I still am like, but how many people do I want on the studio, and how much can I do on my own? Because I don't know how good of a leader, I don't know how good of a manager or a boss I'm gonna be. I'm so creative minded. I don't know if I would do well being a boss. I do well with the creative. I don't know if I do well with the administrative. So, yeah, leader, the title scares me. But I like helper and I like expert.
More often than not, I've seen, you know, kind of a left brain, right brain type of leadership where you have the creative and you have someone who's a little more admin minded because those people exist, making it so that the creative can be creative.
Hmm.
They work together to support each other's strengths.
Yeah, I think that's what I need. Actually, I
Yeah.
know that's what I need. I've been trying to admin myself of like giving myself deadlines and it works to an extent, but you know, it's like I need someone to tell me what to do so I can just do it.
You just said 42 minutes ago, I don't want nobody telling me what to do.
I know. I know. I do contradict it. I know, but like I don't want people telling me what to do, but I do want people telling me like when it should be done. Maybe that's worse. Maybe that's better.
Okay. No, that's fair. There's you need structure. And who
Yeah.
doesn't?
Yeah.
there's freedom in structure. Yeah, that's why there are folks who dress like cartoon characters. They just buy like 10 jumpsuits and they're like, you know what? I don't have to think about that.
Yep. Exactly.
I saw an interview with David Fincher, R.I.P., who he was like, I eat the same thing every day, and he was talking to Charlie Rose, and I know I just aged myself. The fact that I know who and what Charlie Rose is.
That name sounds familiar, but I couldn't.
Don't say it. Oh my god. He was before my time, but Ma loved Charlie Rose. He was one of those just like one on one, two people at a table in a dark room talking.
Mm,
Proto podcast.
hmm.
But yeah, like removing that decision fatigue. That is a beautiful thing. I mean, we went through just about all my questions.
Oh, nice. I thought you were going to ask something about grief. That's what you texted me about. That's
Forgot
fine
about
though.
that. I kind of skew. I wanted to skew against it because I didn't want. So a lot of art comes from pain, right?
Hmm.
A fair amount comes from some kind of pain, usually a deep pain.
Hmm.
Um, you and I experienced, or are, I think we will probably forever, experience a bit of grief. Um, and you've woven your processing of that grief into your passion of games.
Hmm.
Did you know you were doing that at the time?
Um, it was weird because for the longest time in my head I had separated my poetry and gaming. For me, for the longest time it was like poetry is where I talk about how I'm feeling and I talk about grief and I talk about, that deep emotional stuff. And gaming is where I'm just kind of silly. And I'm not really sure what happened or why, but at some point I just kind of thought, what if I did make a game about this? And so I did make a game about our mother passing away. And I think I've made a few games, 2 games about that. And one, I also think it was because of the program that I was using, which is called Bitsy. And it's a very, I'm not really sure how to describe it, but it's a very simple, pixelated game engine that people use to make short, poetic games. And so I think that's also what it was, where I was like, oh, this is a poetic space in the gaming world, which I'd seen before, but it was just one that really grabbed me. And so I was like, oh, I can be poetic in this space. And if I'm going to be poetic, then I'm going to talk about grief because that's what I was feeling at the time. So yeah, it just kind of naturally happened where all of a sudden these two forms that I had seen as two different things, poetry is over here, gaming is over there. All of a sudden, I found a way to put them together in a way that I really liked. Um, and yeah, it's really interesting because poetry obviously is interactive, but not nearly the same way as gaming. With poetry, that interaction is, reading the poem, thinking about the poem, feeling it. That's interaction. With gaming, it's literally, nothing's going to happen until you move something. Nothing will happen until you press a button and then the character will interact. And so it's way, way more intimate, I think, of an interaction. Maybe. You could argue. I don't know. But I just feel like there's something more. It's definitely more active. So, yeah, it's to answer your question. um, I didn't really like plan it, but it just all kind of fell into place.
No, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, as you said, our mother did die due to cancer. and we've both been processing it in different ways. I want to talk about what you said about how how a poetic game becomes more intimate. So, you write about grief, I read about grief. I read your poem, and I lean on your expertise here. Um, I read the poem and I interpret, I'm reading it through my lens and I
Mm-hmm.
interpret it the way I'm going to interpret it. Might not, it's most likely not going to match your interpretation. Even
Mm-hmm.
if you are writing about, our mother passing and I
Mm-hmm.
read it, we very similar backgrounds, I'd argue.
Mm-hmm.
Same mother, not the same grief, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to pick up on every shade that you felt when you wrote that poem.
Right.
With a poetic game, you are holding my hand, you are walking me through this poem. You're leading me, actually, to your definition of leadership. You are prescribing exactly what I have to do.
Yeah.
And I'm punished if I don't do it.
I mean, punish seems like a harsh word,
No,
but
I am punished. The game, I can't progress.
yeah. I mean, yeah. There is some truth to that. I am definitely leading. I think I'm leading in a poem too. It's like this is good. It's like I put the words down. This is something my advisor actually would say because I would talk to her about poetry and games. Um, and I kept trying to figure out interaction. What did that mean? What does that do? And she was like, "Well, in poems, it is like the reader does still have agency because even though I've written the words out and I've shaped them the way I want to shape them, the reader can read the poem, from bottom to top if they want. They can skip the title if they want. They like there are ways that the reader can still change up how they read it and that will change things. Um, and then the player too, yes, I am leading you to do a certain thing, but sometimes you may find your own path and that might not actually be punishing. What if I was trying to steer you to go left but instead you went right? Maybe there's something there. Like it's a different world. As I'm just thinking about my games because there really is no punishment. There is no game over in my grief games. Um, but it is like either you catch everything I've put here or you don't, like either you catch all the dialogue, you speak to all the people, or maybe you'll miss a few people. Um, and that's fine. Like that's not really a punishment, but it's like, depending on how you play, you may get it all or you may not. Um,
So, what you want is for folks to explore your game holistically,
hmm
not unlike a poem.
Yeah.
Maybe you're being even kinder with a game because with a poem, I could read it over and over again. I could read it now, wait 5 years, and let life uh let that new lens read that poem, interpret it completely differently, so on and so forth.
hmm
Um and same with a game, but maybe punishment's the wrong word, but you're certainly rewarded for curiosity.
Yes. Yes.
But you want the person playing the game to take in the best version of the game.
Yeah. Whatever that is for them. I think with a poem, I'm like, here's the poem, read the poem. Don't skip the words, ideally. Whereas with a game, it's like, here's the land, and I've kind of put some things here and there, and feel free to explore it all. Feel free to look for everything, or just take the main path if you're just interested in that and just want to see, I don't know, how the game ends. But yeah, rewarding you for curiosity, I think, is always what I try to do, because there's a lot of times where, not just in my games, but in other games, where it's like, oh, if you collect 100 of these things, a new ending appears. If you go over here, a new thing appears. Like, I think curiosity is always the goal of, like, we want you to live in this space for a while. We want you to want to live in the space, and we want you to want to explore it. And hopefully we will reward you in a way that you think is good and appropriate for how much you've explored.
Hmm. I think that might be a good note to leave it on then.
Yeah, that sounds good. If I were to lead something, I want to lead people towards being curious.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. So, the end.
That's it. Yeah. Woo.
Hi. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Title. This is the first ever episode of this podcast, and it sounds like it. Thank you for being curious enough to listen past the clicks and typing. Huge thank you to my younger sister and first guest, Shantae Daniels. Beyond the Title is recorded and edited with love by me, Sheree DeMeo. Beyond the Title is available on Spotify and YouTube. My music is Always Near Instrumental Jazz by Trygve Larsen via Pixelbay. If you're a leader from a marginalized community with like 90 minutes, I'd love to chat. Please send me an email at beyondthetitlepod@gmail.com. Thanks.